Afternoon, everyone. Today, jurors heard SLED's third interview with Alex Murdaugh. They heard Murdaugh explain in his own words what he thinks happened the night of the murders of his wife and son.
Our Greg Adeline joins us live in Walterboro with some of the key takeaways from that critical interview.
And good afternoon to you, Judy and Dondi. You could say this was very revealing. The third interview between SLED and Alex Murdaugh 2 months after the murders on June the 7th, 2021. This interview happened August the 11th at a place not too far from here, SLED's office here in Walterboro. This was in a room that had a surveillance camera. It was an interrogation room, much different from the vehicles that he had been interviewed in two prior interviews with David Owen, but this one was seen for the first time by this jury, and it showed an interesting dynamic that had set up because it showed Alex Murdaugh, at least this time around, 2 months after the murders, taking a different tack, in some ways somewhat fishing to see what investigators knew, asking Owen questions about what leads they had or who was shot first. Murdaugh said that he thought that Maggie was shot first. Investigators say they believed the opposite. Owen pressed Murdaugh about his timeline and his busted alibi. Alex had told investigators that he was napping from 8 to 9, but Owen told Alex that his voice could be heard on Paul's kennel video at 8:44. Owen even saying, "You have a distinct voice." Murdaugh again denied being at the kennels after dinner. Owen pressed Murdaugh, asking when he changed clothes after the Snapchat video at 7:56, showing him with a drooping tree wearing an outfit different from the one that he was wearing when investigators arrived in the early morning hours of June 8th. Alex did not have a specific answer, and then Owen showed him that Snap video and asked if the video was from that night. Alex saying that he didn't know. He also asked why Alex didn't check Maggie at the kennels when he left to see his mother, despite calling Maggie several times after 9 o'clock. Alex said that he didn't expect Maggie to ride with him to see his mother. Murdaugh told Owen that he was at his mom's for 45 minutes to an hour. That is something that has been refuted by witnesses in this trial. Owen also pressing him, saying that investigators knew that Paul and Maggie were killed with a family weapon, and asked Alex for an accounting of the missing weapons, to which Alex said Paul's gun was used, referring to that .300 blackout that killed Maggie Murdaugh. Owen said yes, and that gun is missing. Now finally, Owen asked Murdaugh point blank if he killed his wife and son, to which Alex Murdaugh said no, and seemed to express shock that he was being considered as a suspect. Owen testifying today that the inconsistencies in Murdaugh's stories over time really narrowed their focus on him as a suspect. Basically, how long he was at his mom's, how long he was riding with Paul, his apparent coaching of his housekeeper, Blanca, about his shirt in the Snapchat video, and the statement that he said he wasn't at the kennels after dinner that had been refuted. All of these were contradictions in Owen's mind that he felt ultimately zeroed them in on Alex Murdaugh as a suspect, especially that kennel video. Take a listen.
Was he ever inconsistent about whether or not he went down to the kennel after supper that night?
Yes.
Did he ever say he did go down there after dinner?
He never told me he went down there after dinner.
Never told you that?
He told me he took a nap and then he was at the house after dinner. He knew Maggie went to the kennels. At first he wasn't sure where Paul went, but then he realized that Paul must have gone to the kennels because that's where he found them. But then he stayed at the house, took a nap. He's the one who discovered him. He's closest in relation.
And right now, a cross-examination is underway of Owen. Jim Griffin, the defense lawyer for Alex Murdaugh, with a robust cross-examination, seeking to poke holes in what he's saying was a singular investigation. He said that SLED didn't look at anyone else. And he also sought to point out examples where he said that SLED missed opportunities to exclude Alex Murdaugh as a suspect, saying that they never asked for the clothes in the Snapchat video, and also that they never found the guns. Now, back out here live, it is important to note that there has been some talk and some speculation about Alex Murdaugh perhaps testifying on his behalf in his defense. And many legal analysts say, especially after watching that third interrogation with some of these apparent inconsistencies that came out in that interrogation, those analysts say that it would likely be a bad idea because, after all, prosecutors could cross-examine everything that Alex Murdaugh were to testify to on the stand. And they say if those interviews were any indication that perhaps they would have a lot to work with. So that's the very latest out here live in Walterboro. Greg Adeline, WIS News 10.